As we close out 2021, I don't mean to end the year on a point of discouragement, but I had much higher hopes that corona hysteria would be a funny memory of the distant past at this point. I had much higher hopes that, number one, constant government excess would have pushed well beyond most people's patience by now, and number two, that for those of greater concern for this virus, they'd finally find their peace through the vaccines. And then whether based on the principles of liberty or based on restored confidence for the vaccinated or both, this mass hysteria would have ended months ago instead of persisting as a forever carrot dangling in front of our faces that we keep trying to comply our way to capture. And to be fair and precise, that pessimistic reflection is regional and localized. There are plenty of places across the fruited plain where this mass hysteria isn't just rightly mocked. It never really happened at all, but at least for the population centers of this country, my 2021 hopes for coronavirus sanity were far too optimistic. The harsh truth is there are more of us than I ever previously understood who respond to a government shove not with a shove back, but with a bended knee and a submissive request for a kick to the teeth, too. And those of us inclined to be afraid of this virus are actually inclined to be forever afraid, no matter how weak the virus becomes, and no matter the preventative and treatment options available. Repeatedly, we have watched goalposts set, goalposts met, and then goalposts shifted, with each new line drawn further away from our norms of freedom than the last, and each line I thought would finally be the one that ends it. Okay, come on. Nobody's going to wear masks indefinitely. And then they did. Okay, come on. Nobody's going to tolerate the forcible shutdown of their businesses. And then they did. Okay, come on. Nobody's going to accept their livelihoods threatened by forcible vaccination. And still, they are. The point is, we are brewing a catastrophic combination right now. There is no defined bottom to the depths we will bow to government decree. And there are no defined moral limitations for what many in government are willing to do to us. And without clear limitations on either side of that arrangement, I can't call any prediction for the future too ridiculous. That is the context in which a proposed bill in New York State fits. Oh, don't worry about that. That's just crazy kook stuff. That'll never happen. But if I've learned anything over the last 2 years, it's that yesterday's crazy kook stuff is today's new policy, so never dismiss it when they propose it. As reported by National Pulse on Saturday, headline, New York legislation provides for indefinite detention of the unvaccinated at governor's whim. New York's legislative session begins January 5th. This is Assembly Bill A416, and the text and the terms of the bill are some of the most insane constitutional toilet paper treatment you'll ever read. The bill gives the governor or delegates within the governor's administration the right to remove and detain any individuals or groups of people presenting a, quote, significant threat to public health by way of communicable diseases. And by the way, that's not the reporter's characterization or interpretation of the bill. That is the bill's actual language. The bill authorizes detention in a medical facility or any other the governor deems appropriate. But don't worry, there are limitations, like it's only 60 days of extrajudicial confinement without due process. After 60 days, then the courts have to get involved. But also, the courts have 90 days to consider the detention. So when they say 60 days, think closer to indefinite. And of course, that detention doesn't just mean confinement. It comes with a state-prescribed treatment plan, too. The bill authorizes the forced administration of whatever the medical authorities deem appropriate, including preventative medication, therapy, decontamination, and, yes, vaccination. But don't worry, in that case, too, you're protected by court order. Because there's nothing unjust about indefinite detention without due process while you wait for your medical decisions to be made by some guy who went to law school, not med school. Amid the backlash you'd expect, and you can read in the bill's comment section if you'd like some quality lunchtime entertainment, the bill has now been shelved from consideration for this session, at least according to one source who says the sponsor has dropped it, though as of now, neither the legislature's pages nor the sponsor's page show any sort of withdrawal. But whatever the status and whatever happens, if you read that bill and it sounds crazy, well, that's because you're the crazy one. Actually, not the New York State Assembly. Never mind that the text of the bill is right there on the New York Assembly and Senate websites for the current legislative session, sponsored by an assemblyman named Nick Perry out of Brooklyn. If you think this bill has any semblance of reality to it, you're the delusional one. That's what the fact checkers insist that you believe. Now, as far as the bill's legislative prospects in the moment, yeah, it is true. It is simply introduced at this point to be handled by committee if, in fact, it is not withdrawn. It has no sponsor in the Senate, and it lacks any sort of clear majority support in either chamber of the legislature. After all, the fact checkers offer consolation. Thousands of bills are introduced each legislative session in New York and never make it out of committee, because somehow 8,000 pieces of insanity drowning out one means the one is okay or not worth your concern. Don't worry about that specific piece of crap. We got a whole crap mountain right over here. Well, hey, thanks for the comfort. But besides, says a senior advisor to former Governor Andrew Cuomo, we have real problems to focus on, and I urge the crazy uncles fueling this cut-rate QAnon theory to knock it off. Turn off Proud Boy Twitter and take a walk or something. Yeah, but I didn't get it from Proud Boy Twitter. I got it from the New York State Legislature's website. If this is some right-wing conspiracy theory, why is a Democratic assemblyman introducing it and posting it online? And if this bill is such an irrelevant outlier, why is it part of a long list of similar proposals, including forced coronavirus vaccines for school, both K through 12 and college, as well as preschool and daycare, data submission to a state vaccine database, the elimination of a parental consent requirement for vaccines for teens 14 and older, the elimination of the religious exemption from vaccine mandates, and health insurance refusal for the unvaccinated. Are there a lot of QAnon Proud Boys in the New York State Legislature, or is there actually something of concern here? Now, perhaps you wonder, why is a Cuomo advisor commenting? Didn't he fondle his way out of office weeks ago? Yes, he did, and this commentary is from his term as governor, because this bill has actually been proposed on an annual basis. That's the other point of the fact checkers. Hey, calm down. This bill isn't even new. It was originally proposed in 2015 during the Ebola outbreak, when a woman refused to quarantine after close contact, and the bill has been reintroduced each session since, but it hasn't even been heard by committee. Okay, but if it's only about Ebola, then why doesn't the bill reference Ebola? And why does it keep getting reintroduced years after Ebola is gone? And why is it unreasonable to ask why even one member of the assembly is annually bent on medical tyranny over the Constitution? How is doing this every year better than doing it only once? Who cares? It's going nowhere. Shut up. It's going nowhere. Stop talking about it. It's going nowhere. That is the recurring response. No, the bill doesn't set up any camps, you stupid idiot. Get the facts straight, says a state senator. That's right. It only allows indefinite detention in whatever facility the governor wants. Thanks for the clarification. And no, it isn't going anywhere, he says. It doesn't even have a Senate sponsor. Shut up, Marjorie Taylor Greene, says a Newsweek fact check. Stop falsely claiming the New York legislature passed this bill. They didn't. The bill hasn't had a vote in the Assembly or the Senate. Well, point of fact granted, and I'm not defending the inaccurate claim on process, but all of these reassurances and so-called fact checks neglect the broader point. What if the bill did have more sponsors? What if the bill did pass the Assembly and the Senate? What if the bill did become law? Are there fundamental rights and wrongs here legally and morally, or not? Because I'm much less concerned about the specific vote tally than I am about a country that lacks clarity on the principles at stake here. Because after all, we have heard absolutely nothing from New York political leadership that would protect against this sort of tyranny should it become more politically viable. For them, it is always and only about practicality, not any sort of moral framework. It works. That's the line we constantly hear from New York politicians. Governor Kathy Hochul said recently, "We know that vaccine mandates work, so we're going to have to be talking about some more going forward." And Mayor Bill de Blasio has constantly said the same. Whatever infringement I want works, so who cares? It works. That's the only relevant consideration.
We know these mandates work, and we know people respond. Look, human beings are pretty predictable. If you say your paycheck depends on it, or your ability to enjoy life and go do the things you want to do, people will make the practical decision overwhelmingly.
If someone points a gun at you and demands your wallet, it may very well be the practical decision to hand it over, But that doesn't mean that the mugger is justified or that his life of crime works either, by the way. They keep saying that these mandates clearly work, while cases in their state reach record levels and at best show no statistical difference from states who opted to respect their citizens' rights instead. The point being, if whatever they determine works is the only guiding principle for what these people will do to you, don't just watch out for this one particular bill. Watch out for everything within a 100-mile radius of these villains. If it works is sufficient justification to threaten your livelihood, they have given no reason why it works isn't sufficient justification to imprison you. They have given no reason why it works isn't sufficient justification to delete everything about you, including your rights and your life itself. Call it hyperbolic, but today's hyperbole is tomorrow's normal, because without clear boundaries of principle, the only thing that's clear is the pathway to hell. And it has been since the start. We have been on that path this whole year under the constant promise that the next step will finally be the last one. And then when it isn't, we get right back in line to take another under the same broken promise. It's not crazy to worry and to warn about the dangers of that arrangement. It is only crazy to maintain it and to expect a better result next time, as somebody once said, to define the term insanity. So 2021 may have underperformed in that department, but as is the spirit of the season, year's end is a great time to plot a new course for the new year. We would be wise to do it. Either that or I'll see you for a resolution next year as we plot our escape from the governor's QAnon Proud Boy detention facility that supposedly nobody ever saw coming. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Gab, that is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.